Hello, Miss Lynn. I'm just going to go over some of my favorite things that I used in this project. I always have 1/8 of an inch double-sided basting tape, and you know what? The one thing I'm not going to have you do is make your turn hole over here by where the silicone is, because when I looked at this in the finishing part, I'm like, yeah, they're leaving that opening that you have to stitch. They're leaving it right by the silicone, which is really actually the harder part of it to turn because it's stiff. So when I stitch today, you're going to notice that I'm going to leave mine at the bottom over here. It makes it easier to turn, makes it easier to trim, and it makes it easier to close that hole and get it straight. So I have some double-sided basting tape. 1/8 is my favorite, so much so that I usually buy rolls that are about this wide. And then in the directions, it said you don't need to use a walking foot, that you can use either a regular foot or a zipper foot. On the first one that I did, I did use a walking foot. On the second one, I just used a zipper foot and my regular J foot. So I would say, whatever makes sewing easy for you. So I have the walking foot here. And then if I am going to use this, then I'll be using the 1/4 inch. There's a 1/4 inch guide that goes on this foot so that I can maintain that 1/4 inch seam allowance. But if you're sewing on a brother or a baby lock machine, either one, and it doesn't really matter what model, pretty much up and down the entire line and both of them, your machine has a pre-programmed stitch in it that gives you a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance with your J foot. And to be honest with you, I use that exclusively. I don't even have a 1/4 inch foot anymore. And I'll show you while we're on the machine why I like that. The toes on the J foot are longer than the toes on my 1/4 inch foot. So it helps me maintain that seam allowance for a longer period of time. So I just kind of always use that one now. As far as zipper feet, this is the zipper foot that came with your machine. I'm going to kind of zoom in here a little bit. Let's let everybody in. All right. So your machine came probably, if you're on a brother or baby lock, with this eye foot. And with this is like my least favorite zipper foot of all times on the planet from as long as I've been sewing. And part of it is, it gives you, the only benefit it does is the side here usually lines up against your zipper teeth so that you can't run over them. But that's the only benefit. You can't really get really close because you can't move your foot, your needle over far enough. The other thing is, if I want to turn around and go the other way, I have to take the foot off and put it on the other side and then mirror image my stitch. And the reason I say that is when you sew down this way, you really shouldn't turn and go up the other way. If you have trouble getting with crooked straps for bags and crooked zippers, that's the reason, is you're pushing fabric this way when you go this way, and then you're pushing it this way. So in the end, you end up with something that's like skewed. So I prefer not to use this kind. I prefer either one of these. This one is my favorite because it's got a really nice square toe on it. This is the brother square toe zipper foot. Brother baby lock, exactly the same. So if you have a baby lock machine, you have a brother machine, they both use the same foot. What's nice about this one is I don't have to change it. You see, there isn't 2 bars here. There's only one. All I have to do is press mirror image. So if I want to come down this side and then I'm going to go the other way, I don't have to change the foot, just touch the mirror image button. And the same holds true for this. This is the baby lock version. It's just a little narrower. So, both of them work equally as well as far as stitching. Now, where this one kind of shines apart from the crowd here is you'll notice that the finish looks a little bit different. It looks a little bit different because this one's also a non-stick foot. It's a non-stick metal foot, which means that you can use it to sew You can use it as to sew on vinyl, on clear vinyl, on glitter vinyl, on any kind of vinyl, and it's not going to stick. So that gives it added value to me, is when it doesn't, I can use it for something else. So in class today, I'll be using a combination of the J foot. If I feel like I need a zipper foot, I'll be grabbing this one. But you should have your own foot for whatever machine you're on. You should just have it handy, whatever zipper foot. And if you prefer to use a walking foot at any time, that's fine. So here's the 2 versions of this that I did. This is what we're doing in class. And I also noticed, if you are, wanting to make them as gifts, that when you get to the end, it actually shows you how to make mini rugs using only a half of one of the silicone sheets. So, but this is just kind of I think this is like a great size. Most mug rugs are a lot smaller, but I really liked this size. So we'll be doing this one in class. When I tested out the pattern, I had scraps, and I was thinking, ooh, winter, hot cocoa. And so I noticed we had some scraps. So with this version of it, it was nice to be able to fussy cut one of the house. I think all these scraps are all leftover Kimberbell pieces. I'm not sure about this, but I know these are. And it was nice to be able to just fussy cut that house and have that one print be kind of a showcase. So we're not doing that one.
Those fabrics were from Cup of Cheer.
Yeah, that probably why they look familiar to me, because I have that kit at home and I still haven't put it together yet. I meant to put it together for the neighbor. She had, when I bought the Cup of Cheer kit, she had 2 littles, and I just love them. They always include me in everything, birthday parties, Christmas, everything. And then I thought, oh, this will be fine, because I don't really have anybody that's going to use an advent calendar. And I thought this will be fun. I never got started on the Cup of Cheer. So I thought, okay, now the kids are getting too big, but bless her little heart, she had one more. So now I can put that back on my list, as that's okay. I can probably do it for them. And hopefully one day I'll get enough time to really, I spend so much time doing the projects that we do down here that I'm like, when I get home, I'm like, yeah, I think I'll just zone in front of the TV for a while. Anyway, they gave you 3 different views of what you could do with this pattern. And then you had a cutting chart based on which one you were doing. So we were doing view 1. Last night when I sent your link out, I said, go ahead and cut your fabrics. If you didn't, you can cut them as you go along, because frankly, it's not that many pieces to cut. All right. So I have my pieces cut. Here's my back. I had the kit with all the leftovers. So if it looks like my batting and my fill sheet are a little bit short sheeted, they are, but it's fine, because look at the size. I'm going to have a lot of stuff here I'm going to trim off anyway, so I'll just have a little less to trim off. I took the short socks. All right, then I have my strips cut. I have, again, most of the kits had the black trees. And so the black trees are all gone. So I got the green trees, and that's why mine looks a little different. This one here had the darker trees. And I am ready to go. I have one of my 2 silicones here. So I'm going to go ahead. Okay, we got a couple more. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the machine, and I'm going to move both the camera and the laptop so I can see when people join in. Okay, I will say goodbye for a few minutes so that you're looking at the machine and not me. And then this one I'm going to pause as well, so that I don't give you, so you don't need Dramamine when I switch everything around. All right, so look at all these wonderful faces. This is what I love about the sew alongs, because we get a lot of us that get to sew together. So I'm on the Luminaire this morning. So I will, I'll shout out the stitches and stuff that I'm doing, but just use whatever you're comfortable with. I will kind of show you that mystery magical, perfect 1/4 inch stitch on your machine if you have a brother or baby lock machine. And I'm pretty sure that it's on other brands of machines as well. If not, you can actually do it, create it. So we're going to start by looking at page 4, because we are just stitching the mug rug. We've already, our block is just our fussy cut block. So my needle is a 90 top stitch. My thread today, I'm on a variegated thread kick. So I have I think this is 2D. I have it, which is a cotton, and I have it in the bobbin and on the top. And that's all from my machine. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and set my machine up for a 1/4 inch stitch, the one that's programmed. Now, one of the suggestions was that you use at least a 3.0 stitch length. And when you're stitching on the silicone, I would definitely suggest that. However, when you're not, if you want to do whatever stitch length you would normally use for a quilting project, go right ahead. So I'm going to go to sewing. You will find this stitch in 2 places on some of the higher end machines that have more categories. So in the utility category, this will be on most of them. So by most, I mean Brother 3000, 3050, 3100, the Crescendo or the Chorus, the Ballad, the 2400, the 2450, and I think it even is in the 1350 or the, I think that would be either the Brilliant or the Soprano. You have different categories. So you'll have 2 categories. One's a sewing utility stitch category. The other's your quilting category. All right. So under the quilting or the utility, if you scroll down, you will see that you have some stitches down here that say P for piecing, Q for quilting. So on the first one, on my machine, it's 1-30. But if you look at what happened to my stitch length and my needle position, at the center needle position, the needle position is at 3.5. On this stitch, it shortened my stitch length, which I have control over. I can increase it, but it moved my needle position to 5.5. And what that means is if I put the edge of my fabric, I'll just use some as an example here. I'm not going to stitch anything yet. If I put my foot at the edge and I have this stitch, that is a perfect 1/4 inch seam. So why do I love this one more than just using a 1/4 inch foot? Let me show you. All right. So my J foot has really long toes here. It also has feed dogs that are really long. If I have a 1/4 inch foot, the back part or the thicker part of my 1/4 inch foot is sitting on these 3, but there's nothing in the front here where my toes are. Okay, so that's why sometimes if you're using your 1/4 inch foot, you're thinking, why am I working so hard? I'm trying so hard to do a straight line and it's still kind of going off base for you. If that's what's happening, even with the 1/4 inch foot with the guide, if that's what's happening to you, try it with your J foot. You got nothing to lose. So what happens is these toes are in contact with the larger part of your feed dog for a longer period of time. Your contact like this on your walking or on your 1/4 inch foot stops right here. So check it out. You have half of your 1/4 inch foot. You have pretty much all of your J foot. So that's why I find like it's a better, it's a better choice for me. However, the best choice is it's usually already on the machine and I'll have to go look for it. Okay. So, and then also you have the same stitch. So if you wanted to change your left-right shift so that you have maybe just a little bit of a hair smaller than a 1/4 inch, you can just do this here and it moves your needle just incrementally in 0.25 increments. What's different about the one that's in the queue? Because there is a difference. First of all, the one that's in the queue is at the top row. It's number 2. All right. On most of the other machines, it'll just be the same, but on some of the like the 1350 and up, look at what I get when I do my left right shift. I get 5.63, which is not a number at all on that quarter scale. 5.88 and then 6.0. So you get more needle positions. That's the biggest difference. Others the same. You just get more needle positions. The stitch length, everything is pre-selected for you. So I'm going to go ahead and stay with the utility stitch. And I'm going to go down and select 130. That's going to give me my 5.5. And since I'm going to be sewing on the silicone, I'm going to go ahead and increase my stitch length to 3.0. All right. So I am threaded. I do have a 90-14 needle in. They do recommend a 90 size 90 needle to sew through the silicone. So I'm going to clip the silicone over fabric D piece. So your fabric D piece is your trees. Let me grab my trees. I'm going to set this here. You can see that you do have a little bit of extra. And I also have some clips. If you're relatively new to using clips, there is an upside and a downside. So in this case, they're easy to find. The colored side is up, the clear side is down. Why does it make a difference? Because as you're sewing along, you can just do this. If you have them upside down, you can't just do that. So the clear side or the flat side is the downside. The curved side is the upside. Right. So I'm going to start by, let's see, clip sides with, and turn over to make sure the fabric is laying flat. It's laying flat. Make sure to remove any lint or stray thread between the layers, because nothing's worse than having lint on your mug rug, right? And this is going to be this is going to be referred to as the silicone unit. Stitch the 6-inch block to the silicone unit. All right, let me grab my 6-inch block, and you all got a piece that was bigger so that you could determine where you wanted to fussy cut at. So here's my trees are going up. Make sure that you're not sewing your birds to the, trees upside down. Yes, right sides together when we get there. So this is my silicone unit. So this is now right side up. I want to put these right sides together with my tree unit. All right, right sides together, stitch the block to the silicone unit. So I've got my J foot on. I'm going to go ahead and put my foot down. And I don't have set, if you're on like a Luminaire or a Solaris or a Stellaire or an Altair, you have a pivot feature. I don't have my pivot feature on. I don't have it turned on because I want to be able to actually backstitch instead of just doing the stitch that's the dot. So, that kind of makes a difference. If you turn that on, that you're not going to be able, it's going to start with whatever stitch it starts with. So it's going to start with the stitch in place, I won't be able to backstitch. So I want to be able to backstitch. So I'm also using the multifunction foot control, and I'm going to set this so that I can use it to take care of my back stitching for me. So if you have one of these and you haven't set it yet, watch, it's going to be fun. All right, so here's my multifunction foot control. I have mine the other way because I sew barefoot and it's easier to turn my foot this way than it is to turn my foot this way. So mine does not look like this. My little guy is over on the other side. So forward is always forward. With back, I'm going to have back now be a reverse stitch. And then I'm going to have my little sidecar here. That's going to be thread cutting. So what I love about this is I don't have to take my hands off my work because the foot control is going to do it for me. So again, you're going to see my hands on the table. The only thing that's going to change is all that I need to do is going to be done by the foot control. So here we go. All right, so I'm coming to the end. So now I'm just going to push back on my foot control. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to touch the side and it cuts it. So it's kind of nice. I love that. All right, so here we go. Here's our first one. We have it stitched. The silicone unit is shown on the right of the 6.5-inch block, but you can also put it on the left side if you want. I think the more important thing is not which side you put the silicone on, it's that your trees and your birds are going in the same direction. That to me would be the problem. All right, so now place the 6.5-inch block right sides together with the silicone. It's sandwich stitched through all layers, scant 1/4-inch seam. Press the 6.5-inch block away from the silicone. Okay, so I'm gonna start my iron up over here and we'll get that pressed. So there's a couple things you can use. First of all, silicone can take heat, but you don't really want it to have direct heat, especially if your iron's hot. But I also will press vinyl, but I press it in a little bit of a different way. You can use a piece of parchment paper. And here's why I choose parchment and not a goddess pressing sheet. Think about this. If you have Teflon, Teflon reflects heat. In other words, it will make it hotter. Parchment paper deflects heat. That's why your cookies don't brown as much on the bottom if you have parchment, because it's light, it deflects. So in a case like this, a lot of times I will use parchment paper as a pressing aid instead of like a goddess pressing sheet or a Teflon pressing sheet. So I've got, I'm just going to press this really quickly. I have my parchment paper over here. And then one thing that I always do is I always use my, a pressing block to absorb the leftover heat so that I get a nice crisp press. All right, just doing a little press here, looking at what's our next step here. So now I'm going to add my borders. I'm going to start with the 10.5 by 1.5 across the top of the rug, back stitching at the beginning and the end, pressing the strips away from the mug, trim the ends of the strips equal with the mug rug. All right. So here's the difference of when you press with a pressing block. See how much flatter that is there? So when you're going to do top stitching, if you wonder why sometimes you try to do top stitching and it's pretty good, but it's not perfect, it's not as good, having some kind of a clapper or a pressing block where you can actually get that to be perfectly flat there will make it a lot easier for you. All right, so right now I'm going to square up this side and take off this extra over here for my my fabric for my trees, and I'll be right back.
Ready to go?
Yep. Can I help? Question? All right. All right, so I'm grabbing my 10-inch strips. How are we doing? It's a great morning to sew, isn't it? Where's everybody at? I know that some of us are here in Reno, but I know some of you are all over. Oh no, Donna, I'm so sorry. So I know that Miss Lynn is in Indiana. I know that Miss Myra is in Arizona. And if you're joining us from somewhere out of the state of Nevada and you want to let us know where you're from so we can get to know you, go ahead and chime in the chat box. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and clip this on here. Again, remember the bottom, the flat side is the bottom. So far we have chilly Klamath Falls, Oregon. Yeah, you guys got an atmospheric river that went through there and we dodged it. Thank you. I'm sorry. Sylmar, California. Yay. Tennessee, Southern California. Moses Lake, Washington. Oh my gosh, this is wonderful. We all get to stitch together and we would never know each other. We would never have that opportunity. Tennessee. I love Tennessee. It's one of my favorite places to visit. All right, so here we go. I'm going to do a little back stitching. And again, I'm going to let my foot control do my work for me. Notice that my fingers are not coming off. Central Iowa, sunny Florida. I used to work for a company out of New Jersey. So it was never sunny Florida, it was Florida. That's one of the joys of working for a multinational or an international company is you get to go a lot of places. You get to hear the same word pronounced a lot of different ways. Bay Area, that's home. That was home to me. People's Republic of Berkeley. If you're in the Bay Area, Spangler's was one of my favorite restaurants when I was a kid. Not sure it's still there. Oregon Coast and Florence. I love this. Thank you, you guys. Go ahead and keep chiming in. This is amazing. All right, here's my other one. And again, my foot, my machine presser foot is going to do, not my presser foot, my foot control. There we go. The last 2 days, I have to tell you, I have struggled with word placement. It's like the fish is spending all of its time in the back of the tank and rarely swims to the front. So, not sure what it is. I think maybe I just need to drink more coffee or less coffee. Spangler's closed? Oh no. Well, it's been a while. I haven't been to Berkeley for quite a while. I was in San Francisco not too long ago. All right. All right, so same thing here now. So for me, look at how straight that 1/4 inch seam is. That is not something, that is something that someone that does not quilt all the time really struggles with, or if you're new to quilting, struggles with that perfect straight 1/4 inch seam. So that's why for me, it's always going to be the J foot. I have no reason to change. All right, I'm just going to do a press. All right, so I want to play a little game with you. Patrick's been playing this game all week. And I know some of you have already answered the question, but I have a favorite newish Christmas movie. I have a favorite new Christmas movie. And I'm going to give you a couple of hints because I think some of you have probably had it, have probably seen it. All right. It's newish, like within the last 5 years. What Christmas movie am I thinking about? Well, remember, it's not my favorite one of all times is probably going to be White Christmas. I used to torture my family every single year you could not open a single present, and you had to make it all the way to the end of the movie. And so my daughter always used to say that I damaged her permanently on Christmas movies because I made her watch Bing Crosby. But it was just kind of a family tradition. And then last year I found a Christmas movie that I hadn't seen, and laughed so all the way through it. I can give you a hint, except for you got to promise if I give you a hint, you don't just Google it, because that's not fun. It does have the actor from Elf in it. And I always forget what his name is, but he's always incredibly funny. All right. So again, here's my pressed edge with using a clapper, with using the heat block. It just pulls that excess heat out and makes it really sharp. It's even pretty sharp around the silicone. All right, so I'm gonna just square up here, make sure I'm straight, and then I'm gonna go put my other ones on. Nobody wants to take a stab at it. Okay, I'm gonna give you another hint that will give it away completely. And then you're gonna have to go watch it, I promise, because it is like the funniest thing. It has Ryan Reynolds in it. Yes, thank you. Who said that?
Karen.
Karen. Was that the funniest movie ever?
It's a great movie, yeah.
So if you haven't seen it,
It's a musical.
Huh?
It's a musical.
Yes. If you haven't seen that movie, it launched last year. And just when you think that Ryan Reynolds, the movie is called Spirited. I like Ryan Reynolds because he makes me laugh. But all of the sitcom things that he's done with Sandra Bullock over the years, things like that. But you have not seen funny till you have seen Ryan Reynolds in a musical. But yeah, it was really funny. I enjoyed it a lot. It's right up there with some of the cheesy Hallmark movies this time of the year. But I will tell you, and some of you might know this already. It's kind of a little known fact, but you might know it. If you've been in Reno a long time, you might know it. So there is an actor that plays in a lot of the Hallmark movies, but he's played in a lot of other things, including he had a bit part in Wonder Woman with Gal Gadot, and a couple of other things. And his breakout role was playing John F. Kennedy in a TV movie. And if you like I said, if you've been here forever, you might know who this is. But his name is Christopher Palaha. So if you've lived in Reno a long time, you know that he is one of Judge Palaha's sons. He's actually from the Reno area, and he's had quite a lucrative acting career. But I always enjoy him because I remember him. One of his brothers got married to one of the girls I worked with, and one of his brothers is married to Judge Peter Breen's daughters. So it's like old Reno. He is a good actor, isn't he? So last night, this time of the year, my husband and I tend to do, a little baking and stuff together, just because it's kind of fun to kind of spend some time at the end of the day. So last night was the pizzelles, which are his favorite. And he inherited his grandmother's rival electric pizzelle maker, which is good because I don't have to stand in front of grease and dip a thing in grease. But it's one of those things that you can just mix the batter up and you can sit at the table and you can, watch movies and stuff. So last night I was thinking, this is really fun. We're sitting here watching this cheesy Hallmark movie. It wasn't that cheesy. It was actually kind of fun. It was called Christmas at the Biltmore or something like that. And Christopher Palaha was in it. And I'm like, I always like it when he's in those movies. He's like, my husband was like, yes, this is why I taped it. I know that. Or DVR'd it or videoed it or however they call that now. But that's one of the things I love about this time of the year is spending time with people that you like, and you know, I like the festivities. I like the festivities more than the presents, actually. I know maybe a lot of you feel the same way at this point too. It's like, unless you're gonna buy me the presents I want. Which I know how you guys shop, because a lot of the users are calling. I got a couple calls yesterday that said, I don't trust my family to get what I really want on the Christmas list. So let me buy it for myself. So I like how you think. And for those of you that have been following along with the trials and tribulations of my sick puppy, she is better. Thank you. Thank you for all of your positive thoughts, those of you that sent it. I have, my dog has whatever that crud is that's crossing the nation. And I was really worried about her. It was, some of you know, that's the first time I've actually had a dog as an adult. And she's still a puppy. So I was pretty worried. And last night she got in trouble for chewing on something. And that hasn't been anything for the last 6 weeks. That's how long she's been sick. So we were really excited that she chewed on something she wasn't supposed to chew on. All right. So how's everybody doing? This is where I'm at. I've done my sides. I'm going to give us a couple minutes for some of us to cook up, to catch up. And we're going to kind of look ahead. So I'm going to go ahead and quilt. Now you can do whatever you want. You can do free motion. If you have your embroidery unit attached and you want to stick a hoop on there, you can scan it. You can fill it in with stitches from Design Center or IQ Designer. You can do whatever you want. You can free motion. If you're one of those people that has that juju, I don't. But I am, when I go to put this on, I am going to sew my my batting. I am going to do an outline around my strips, and I'm also going to do one down here. When I connect it to the batting down here, I am going to stay on top of where I tried it 2 ways. When I actually, the first time I thought, well, maybe I'll just go in like 1/4 of an inch or something and avoid top stitching on top of the vinyl. But what happened is I had like this bump here where because the silicone's pretty thick. And so I didn't care for that. So I pulled it out. And today I'm just going to do like a 1/8 of an inch on the, in this case, I'll be along the ditch here, but on this one, I'll do in 1/8 of an inch. And I can also use my J-foot and my needle position to achieve that as well. Thank you. Yes. Your cats, Donna, your cats would definitely not shop correctly. I know. I think they would probably prefer the Chewy app than the A1 Christmas list, right? And I am glad. I'm really glad. I was really worried. There was a couple of days there that my husband and I weren't sure that this poor kid was going to make it. But she's getting better. I see improvement. It's pretty scary, whatever it is. So if you again, I'm gonna let everybody catch up to this point, and then we're gonna layer and quilt to make our quilt sandwich. And I am gonna give you a little bit extra time just in case you might want to do some free motion magic in there. Like I said, I don't have that in my gene pool. So with me, I depend on my embroidery machine or something like that to help me along the way. All right. I'm going to move the camera over to the table so I can layer my quilt sandwich. All right, so I'm going to layer. Right side up over batting and fabric hidden layer. So here's my batting, here's my fabric hidden layer. So the fabric hidden layer, no surprise here, is muslin. If you're new to A1 and our videos, you know that we use muslin in a lot of different applications. And so that's what this is here. And then I'm going to take my finished piece and layer it on top of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and pin into place. If I can find where I set down my pin cushion. Oh, it's right in front of me.
Michelle, did you put your backing on that as well? Or
No, not yet.
Okay.
So it's not having us do that. So if you look at it, the backing is not quilted.
Okay.
All right. So just for a moment, I'm going to tell you why we're not doing that. Normally we would. I mean, that would be the process in a quilt sandwich because we would want our decorative stitches or our free motion quilting or whatever we do to show. But we have to turn this inside out. And if we do that, we won't be able to turn it inside out. But if you did that by mistake, you could still fix it. You would just have to put binding around the edges instead of turning it inside out. So that's why we have our little piece of the fabric that's like I don't forget what they called it. Some kind of, what was the name they gave it? Hidden layer. This is our hidden layer. So this is why we can quilt through the batting through to that layer, but we're not going to, we'll still be able to turn the other inside out. All right, so right side's up. Your piece that you just pieced, your batting, and then your hidden layer on the bottom. And maybe if I stop talking long enough, I could put this on here straight. Don't laugh, Lori. Lori's out there laughing at me.
Okay, I'm kind of like Jeannie, and I looked for things that make it easier.
Oh, good.
And I'm watching you putting the 2 pieces of silicone on the back of both pieces. Would it work if you put the 2 pieces of material together and put 1 large piece of silicone on the back of both of them, and then you wouldn't have the bulk in the seam?
Okay, so you're only using 1 piece of silicone. You're only using the 1 piece. Under here doesn't go silicone. This was just right sides together. So actually, if I had all silicone, that would be a great idea. But in this, you have 2 so that you can make a second mug rug. We're only actually using 1 in the project. But good news is for you that if you have to take that out, it's still fine. You'll have needle marks in it, but you'll still be able to use it. But we only have silicone here. We don't have any silicone underneath the birds. So that's why I ran into that problem, was if I had silicone here, or if I wanted to put, I would have even a bigger hole because I would have a seam that was sewed right side together with 2 pieces of silicone there. It would be really hard to fold it in half. So, but good thought.
No, I haven't sewn it, so I'm just watching.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just 1 layer of silicone. So I have the layer of silicone. I pressed this away from it. So no matter what, I'm going to have that layer of silicone here. And I can choose not to do anything here at all. It only calls for me actually doing, inside here. And if I actually was going to do free motion or something in here, that would be more than enough to anchor this, in place. They show this as kind of being optional. But when I did do it the first time and I did it here, I really emphasized that ledge. So I thought I'm just going to do it here just to keep the fabric, flat on where the silicone is and let the batting just fill in there. But good choice, good thought. If you have longer clips, you could even do this with clips. I just don't have enough of the longer ones back here. So I think I'll just use these pins for right now. All right. So now I'm ready to just anchor this to the batting. And so on the directions, they have you just do, I think, stitch in the ditch. Pretty sure it was just, or maybe they don't have you do anything. Yeah, quilt block area as desired using favorite method. Straight line quilting, stitching the ditch, and echo quilting around a motif are all easy. Do not quilt through the silicone. So obviously I'm going to stitch in the ditch here. That's all where I'm going. And I'll use, my blocks. But the other thing I'm going to do is when I get that done, I am going to baste these layers together. And I'll tell you why. Basting the layers together before I put the back on the top and stitch it. When I go to sew it together, when I baste these layers together, I'm going to do a very scant 1/4 inch seam. I'm going to move the needle over like 2 needle stops and do that 1/4 inch seam because I want to be able to take the bulk of the batting out of my corners. If you want a square corner, you got to get the batting out of there. And if I want a nice turn, I got to get the batting out of there. So that's what I'm going to do. You don't have to do it. But I think that you'll see that when you go to turn it, you will get a real pointy corner without having to struggle because it just adds bulk. All right, so I'm going to move over to the sewing machine and do some sewing magic. Yeah, you could quilt it if you wanted to quilt it after you turned it inside out. That's also a good option. All right, so I tend to not start in corners, and what do I want? I'm just going to use a center needle position. I'm feeling lucky today. And since I'm bobbing around the camera here, I'm going to just set that down. All right, so when you're stitching in the ditch with any foot, the important thing is that you're not watching the needle, you're watching where you're lining up your in the ditch. So when I'm stitching, I'm not watching the needle going up and down. What I'm watching is this piece, this little mark on my foot and this fold. I don't want a bunch of stuff in there, so I'm just going to do a stitch in place. Not worried about back stitching there because that join seam is that's gonna get stitched into something else, so. And in a minute, I'm gonna walk you through why I started in the direction that I did, because there was a reason. All right. What I noticed is when you join strips like this, if I actually stayed the course and started in one corner and went around, then sometimes what I'm doing is I'm joining these sides that go all the way to the end. I'm stitching those down before I stitch the ones that go into them. If that is the case, then sometimes I'll end up with a bubble because I have extra fabric there. So that's why I started. First of all, I never start in corners. I always start off of corners. Didn't you say not to quilt it until after you? No, I did not say that. I said you could do it after you turned it inside out if you wanted to. So I don't start in corners because it's too hard to get rid of wads of thread in corners. And if you want a sharp turn, you don't want the wads of thread there. I also I started off of the silicone because I didn't want any knots being on the silicone. So now what I'm going to do, this is the side I started on. This is the point that I started at. So when I came over on this side, I came over here, and this end of the seam that I'm going to start off with on the batting and the muslin, I would be starting here and coming here. Okay. All the way to the end. If I do that, and this one's not, has no room to ease, if it's not perfect, then I'm going to have a bubble or a buckle somewhere, or a fold or a pinch, however you want to call it. This way, oops, got to have thread in the needle. This way, I don't have bulky thread from, I don't have any bulky thread from a back stitch or a trim in my corner anywhere. So I don't have extra thread there. And then I'm going to let the two sides that, in this case, the two sides that are the join seams, in other words, this piece is joined to this one goes all the way to the end. I'm going to let these two pieces on each side, I'm going to sew those first. So if they need any room to move, they've got it before I hit that last one. Just haven't had any issues of having to remove puckers since I did that. And that actually more comes from the garment industry than the quilting industry because of doing welt pockets and bound buttonholes. You have to have place for the fabric to ease to. If you don't have a place for the fabric to ease to, then it makes a bubble, or it comes out crooked, or you can't get it to press out. All right, so now that side's done. Now I can go comfortably from one end to the other over here, knowing that both of these pieces of fabric are already flat. All right. All right, so now I'm gonna do my 1/4" seam, but I'm gonna actually use my J-foot, smooth things out, use my J-foot. But I'm actually gonna move that needle over to the left just slightly more so that when I sew my 2 pieces together, it's going to it's gonna cover it. All right, so I'm gonna go back to picking my stitch. That's my 1/4" with my J-foot. That's 5.50. I'm gonna move it this way too. And I'm gonna make that long because again, it's just a basting stitch. It just needs to hold the pieces together. And then that way it'll give me an opportunity to trim the excess of batting out from underneath that seam before I go to sew it and turn it. Now I'll still have a little bit, but that's fine. It'll catch in the seam and that's totally okay. I just don't want to have to trim it after I've sewn those layers together. It's harder to do then. Not to mention when you have to close that seam, it will be much easier because you won't be trying to fold it over batting. And you'll have a row of stitching there to help you line it up. Again, this is just basting, so no back stitching is required. All right, so I'm gonna now just go down this at 1/8 of an inch. So what I want to do is I'm going to line up this edge here with the inside of my foot here. There's that hole there, that opening. That's where I'm gonna line that up. I actually have 1/8 of an inch top stitching feet at home. All right, so line that up. And let's see if I do, let's see what's going to work. So if I do far left needle position, not enough. So let me go back to my P and that should do it. So I'm using the 5.50 needle position that happens when I use that stitch that gives me the perfect 1/4". I'm just not using the edge of my foot. I'm using that inside part. All right. I'm going to move over to the table to trim and how's everyone doing? You're awfully quiet.
I'm just watching.
Oh, okay. All right, so you can trim up any loose threads you have. And I'm going to go ahead and trim. First of all, I'm going to trim the batting out while it's still wide, and then I'll trim everything even. So the bigger the piece, the easier it is to handle.
Are you moving the camera? Because the screen just went to Jeannie.
Yes.
Mulligan.
Yeah, I moved the camera and I turned the video off so that you don't need Dramamine. Because man, I can really swing that thing. I feel, then I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for the people that are watching later. All right, so open this a little bit here because I have that crosses over. This is one of those times that if you have the small duck bills, the tiny duck bills, you could use the tiny duck bills. I'm just going to use my curved, like I would use for applique scissors in the boot. But you could also use duck bills for this. Again, you're not cutting the back piece, you're just cutting the batting. So I'm folding the, where I basted it forward and I'm trimming the batting out. It just makes it, you're still gonna have a little bit because this, where I tacked it is actually not quite a 1/4 of an inch. So all of that's gonna, you know, that all that thread's gonna be hidden. But when you go to turn, you're going to love it because you won't have a bunch of stuff in your corner that you're trying to push out when all you're doing is pushing more fabric into the corner. It makes it harder to get it square. So again, I'm just trimming the batting. See, look at, I don't have to worry now about trimming the batting out of this corner because look, there's like no batting left in that corner. This instance is the one part that I probably would use my duck bills if I had the small duck bills around. Because it helps ensure that the flat part of the scissor, the ducky part is on the, would be flat on here. It ensures that that piece can't pop up and you can't cut it by mistake. Now, if you were doing a bunch of these, this may be a step that you would be like, I can do that. The small gypsy quilter duck bills. Yes. Good ones. Mine are purple. Not because I particularly like purple. I do like purple, but because I can find them when I lose them because they're purple. That's what my sewing life's been reduced to, ladies. It's buying bright colors of things so I can find them when I had them 5 minutes ago, right? So if you're doing a bunch of these for gifts and stuff, this might be a step that you'd want to skip and say, oh, it'll be straight enough when I turn it right side out. I don't need to do that step. And you would be totally okay with doing it. You could definitely just cut across the corners, get a lot of the batting out of the corner, and still have a pretty straight corner in there. I'm just showing you a different option. All right. Going to go ahead and give it a little bit of a press. And now I'm going to just trim off the parts of the muslin fabric that are still sticking out there. Right. So here we are. All snug as a mug on a rug. And we're going to do our last step, which is center the mug rug right side down over fabric F and pin together around the outside trim. Oh, we're trimming this up and then we're going to stitch it right sides together. And make sure that one is the same size as the other. And then you're going to stitch with a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to still use my 1/4 inch. I'll just leave mine a little bit bigger. Or you can use 3/8, up to you. So I'm basically just trimming the back down to match my top piece. All right, right sides together. And according to the directions, they want you to stop. If you look at this, this is like they want you to stop right in the middle of the short section where the silicone is. I'm not going to stop there because that's going to make it harder for me to actually work with this. I want it to be someplace where it's not so hard to work with. So for me, I'm going to leave my opening over here, down here at the bottom. And you do want to make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end so that when you go to turn, if you didn't quite give yourself enough room, that you don't end up ripping your stitches out. So remember, the hardest part to turn is going to be where your silicone is. All right, so I'm going to leave it right in here. So I'm going to just, and it looks like I still need to trim. It's a little bit there. All right, I'm just going to take a peek here. I'm right side up, so I know that I'm stopping down at the bottom. That's just for me. If you want to stop somewhere else or you have an easier way, by all means do that. And so I'm going to put 2 clips side by side that tell me where I want to start and stop. And when I do this, usually what I'll do is put my hand in there so I know how much space it takes for me to get my hand in the hole. If you have big hands, if you have little hands, it's not one size fits all with the opening. It's how you're going to get your hand in and out of there. All right, then I'm going to turn it over and take a look. Looking good. So this is what I'm looking for, places where my muslin might have turned over. If that's happening, you can move the clip up so that it's more by the edge of the fabric. All right, looks good. All right, so I'm going to start stitching over here and all the way around. I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch. They said 3/8 of an inch. You could do 3/8. I'm going to do 1/4 just because I want to. I'm already doing 1/4 inch, so it works. It'll be like 1/16 of an inch bigger. But if that bothers you, do 3/8. Come on, come back, camera. There we go. All right, so I'm setting it up for my built-in stitch for 1/4 of an inch. Remember when I did the basted my layers together, I moved my needle over 2 stops to the right so that it would be less than my 1/4 inch seam. All right, so going forward. And my needle came unthreaded again. That's the only thing sometimes that I struggle with this thread is sometimes the cotton thread just slips backwards out of the needle. All right. Switching over to the table again. All right. So again, I'm going to press. One thing that I found is if you press seams flat, you get a better seating to your stitching. So I'm just going to give it, just where I stitched, I'm just going to give it a press. And then I'm also going to, put my little clapper over it. All right, so for my corners, I can't cut from the back because I have both the stitch that I stitched with and the stitch that I basted with. So I'm going to flip it over to the front. But what I am going to do is I am going to cut up to, but not through. Andy, Okay, but not through the stitching line. So let me actually see if I can just blow this up. All right, so I'm just gonna put my fingernail right where that stitching line is for that corner. I don't want to cut through the stitches, but I do want to go straight across and get the bulk out. So when I'm done, it should be right up close to the stitching. That's what's going to give you a square corner. All right, so I'm going to turn now, finding the hole. I'm going to get my hand, oops, don't need it magnified so much for that. Get my hand in there. Okay, so I'm going to take my thumb and I'm going to put my thumb right in that corner. My thumb goes in the corner and my two fingers, so my thumb goes in the corner. My two fingers are going to fold this point together and then turn. It doesn't matter which way. It doesn't matter if you fold back or if you fold forward. You just want your thumb there in the corner, fold the other way, pinch together and push out. And there you have a square corner that does not require a poker to be square because it doesn't have, it's cut clean. It doesn't have batting in it. Again, put your thumb in there and fold. Doesn't matter which way. Fold those corners together, pinch and push. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Corners turned. And I'm doing the corners before I even pull the rest of it out. Pinch. See on this side? Okay. Maybe I'm going to pinch the other way. It's fine. Doesn't matter. Pinch and push. Right, now I can pull the rest of it out. Now that the corners are done, do you notice how easy it is to pull the rest of it out? Until I get to the silicone. But that's not hard either. But my corners are already done when I get out. All right, so I'm going to bring this over here and press. The leftover piece of fabric here to use for a press cloth. Nice and flat. Do the same over here. I kind of go over it with my fingernail. And then all right, so with this one, I have First of all, this got kind of wrinkled when I turned it, so I'm gonna kind of get that wrinkle out of there so I can fold it correctly. I'm gonna fold this to the inside first because that's going to be the easy one. And then I'll use the stitching line to fold that part. And then I'm going to double check it from the front. That I can worry about later. Look, Ma, no bubble. Now I get rid of this. And it's up to you. You can put steam a seam in here if you want. I'm just going to stick a little piece of double-sided tape that in to keep those two pieces together till I can, top stitch around the outside edge. Right. I don't have to tape the whole piece. I just have to tape a little bit of it.
Well, she's done some things with me, enough for Christmas, and I don't want to go expensive, but I definitely want something to have.
All right. So now I'm going to go ahead and top stitch around the outer edge, and I am done with my first mug run. So you can see that once you kind of get into like a system of, with these, then it doesn't take very long. See, I'm pretty fast, so that's why I tried to turn the camera off so you don't end up needing medication. All right. Right, so remember, I want to do just right, like 1/8 inch right around the outside edge. So I'm going to use the same foot, and I'm going to use the inside here, and it's the inside here, but that also continues on this edge of the foot here. So you're okay. And again, I just don't ever start and stop in the at the corners.
I know, I was like.
And there we have it. Who got a mug rug? Who got a mug rug done besides me? Oh my gosh, no one's stitching? You're all just following along this morning? Well, it was nice visiting. Any questions? Oh, I got more things in the chat box. The purpose of the silicone area is to put a mug of hot coffee there and not have it be too hot on the table. So silicone is just your heat to protect. Thanks. Looking for red and white for Christmas candy canes. Good idea. Oh, the pink. Oh my gosh. Let me show you the pink if you were looking for pink. This one is like my very favorite one. So much so that there's hardly any of it left. I've used it in the sewing classes. Well, where is it? It really is truly. I've got like a couple rolls of it at home. Yeah, it's an Isacord one, and it's like the best. It's like your favorite pink Christmas. And I don't know where it's at. Thought it was back here, but apparently not. So the red and white variegated thread for embroidery. I can find red, white, and blue, but I can't seem to find red and white's tough. I haven't found red and white either. Valentine, but there's pink in the. So pink in the variegation may not be a bad thing for a candy cane. I mean, but yeah, I think Isacord Sweetheart, but is definitely pink. Where is it? I would love it if I could find it in this mess back here, but it's really not going to happen. I actually have a spool of it at home too. But yes, that one is just all pinks. The small gypsy quilter duckbills. Yes, I have purple ones.
Michelle,
Yes.
thank you for a very fun 3 days. It has been fun.
Oh, thank you. You've been hanging with me for 3 days. Oh my God. Do you like me to get some drink at this point?
No, it's been fun.
I try to keep you guys entertained. I don't know that you're looking for, Lynn, I don't know that red and white doesn't exist. I think you just haven't found it yet. But if you found it, if you do find it, maybe send us all a message or post it on the A1 sewing group so that we can, because I've always been on the hunt for red and white. I'm trying to get to the bottom of the messages. Oh, good. I'm glad everybody got. Heather found it for me, just ordered it. Okay, was it the Floriani one, Lynn? Oh, wait a minute. I can see it. Oh, you know what? Superior is amazing too. So Lynn did find one, or Heather did, the one Heather posted is Superior Threads. So that's actually one of my favorite places as well. So, I have my favorite stuff. Superior, if I'm going to use monofilament, it's definitely just going to be Superior. I've tried every monofilament that's on the market with as many places as I've traveled to. And so what I look for is things that the majority of people can be successful at, because everybody will be successful with one or two of them, But sometimes I look for things that are not necessarily what I think I'll be more successful with, but what I think you guys all might be more successful with, because we're all at different levels of skill. And so sometimes that, that comes into play. And I don't think you can go wrong with Isocord. I don't think you can go wrong with Superior Threads for monofilaments. And the variegated threads, I'm liking the Isocord, but I also liked the brand that we had in here besides Isocord that, and I'm not sure what brand that was. I like that as well, but I had some variegated threads that, amazingly enough, for those of you that have been doing embroidery and quilting for a long time, you may remember that Brother used to make a whole kit full of variegated threads. They were on the brown spool. So that would have been, I started at Brother in 2004. So it probably would have been like late 90s. It was their country line. It was cotton thread, and they had some amazing variegated colors. I still have a few of those. So anytime, I'm always on the hunt. So anytime you feel like, you found something that the rest of us should probably know about, don't keep it a secret. Okay. I am going to close our meeting. Thank you. You as well. Have a great weekend. I'm looking forward to more cookie baking with the husband who, doesn't normally join in that kind of stuff, but, holiday time, he does kind of help out, and cheesy Hallmark movies, I guess, because that's his thing. And then I'll go watch Spirited later on tonight. So everybody have a wonderful time, a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. And if you made it through all 3 classes with me, and you don't need medication or a stiff drink, then please feel free to take the next week off. Goodbye, everyone.